Hey guys, it's Joel Williams and Chase Elleby from Williams Elleby coming to you today with week number 22 out of our video series of 52 weeks of personal injury. Today we want to ask you a very complicated yet simple question. Are you sure you're getting a fair amount for your personal injury settlement? So Chase, how can someone tell whether an offer that they're considering is a fair and reasonable amount for their particular personal injury case?
Right, so I think the first thing we have to consider is that what's fair is completely relative to the person, to the case, to all sorts of different circumstances, right? We could have the same set of facts, same case, same everything. What I think is fair could be different to what you think is fair, and it really just boils down to what I think the client's risk tolerance is, right? But generally speaking, when you're trying to assess whether or not you have a fair settlement or fair settlement offer, it's the first thing we're looking at. Okay, what are the medical bills? What's owed? How much of that you have to get, have to pay back, right? So that's the first thing we look at to see whether or not the offer is fair.
Yeah, you got to make sure at a minimum that your medical bills are getting paid if it's a personal injury case.
Right.
But that's not all. I think you also have to consider what are the defenses in your case. If you are standing in your opponent's shoes, or if you're the defense lawyer, or the person who's the insurance company is going to be paying you this money, what are their defenses? In other words, what can they bring to the table that weakens your case?
Right.
And in order to make a fair evaluation or a smart business decision when it comes to a personal injury case, you have to consider your weaknesses or your opponent's strengths.
Right. Yeah, it all comes in that balance. I think another thing is to consider obviously what venue you're in and see what sort of similar verdicts have come out of that venue, right? If I know, for instance, we're in Cobb County, Georgia, so if I've got a slip and fall case where my client's got $50,000 in medical bills or whatever it might be, I'm going to try to get as much information as I can about very similar verdicts for those set of facts, so I can tell my client, hey, in Cobb County under similar facts, you're looking at a verdict range of $100,000 to $300,000 or whatever it might be, just so you can get a sense of what the value of that case might be, so then you can determine whether or not the settlement is fair. Now, of course, that's not the end-all be-all. What happened in one case could be completely different what happened in your case, but at least it gives you an idea.
Yeah, and it lets you know, like in that slip and fall case example that you just gave, if you look and see that there's been $27 million verdicts in that case and the defense is offering you $100,000, well, this probably not a good, fair, and reasonable settlement offer.
Right.
Yeah, and another thing is, we talked about medical bills earlier. But when we're considering what lawyers refer to as special damages, things like lost wages have to be considered too. Did you miss work or have to take sick leave? Did you have to be out for an extended period of time? Will you be out in the future because of your injuries? All of that stuff needs to be considered as well. And along with that, you have to consider, okay, well, part of this award may be taxable if it's lost wages, some may not be. That's kind of beyond the scope of this video, but your lawyer should be able to walk you through that, what portion of any settlement money you may or may not have to pay taxes on. But when you have lost wages involved, it's something to consider.
Yep.
And then also, are there aggravating circumstances? Was it a car wreck where you were hit by a DUI driver? Is it a situation where the defendant is being deliberately misleading or telling straight up falsehoods about how this foreign substance got on the floor, whether they knew about it, all of that kind of stuff, because any type of aggravating circumstance can make your case more valuable.
Right, I call that adding heat to the case, yep. Right? If there's heat to the case, then it's going to increase the value of the case. I think another thing we talked about earlier was about defenses in cases.
Yeah.
Right, so another, I guess, kind of subtopic of that would be whether or not you had pre-existing medical conditions that you're trying to seek a recovery for and whatever the incident might be, right? So a classic example is if you had a triple 3-level fusion a month or two before a car wreck, and then you get in a car wreck and your back hurt your back again. Well, that's going to be a pretty solid defense in a case to talk about the extent of your pain and suffering. Now, it's not a complete bar to the case, of course, but they're going to have some arguments, so that's something you need to consider when deciding if you have a fair settlement offer or not.
Yeah, because I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to call a lot of people out on this one, but we have every trial I've ever tried in my entire life. There has been some type of pre-existing medical condition. Some it was more severe than others. Some it was very mild. we like to buy into the argument that this wreck could not have caused an injury to an area of the body that had arthritis or was injured before, until we're the one that gets injured.
Right.
And our neck hurt before, and we know it's completely different. But the defense brings this argument up a lot because they know that juries will buy into it, and then it's a hard job as a plaintiff's attorney to distinguish between what pre-existed this injury and what was caused by the injury.
Right.
And we have to consider all that, but it is a very real defense, and it's something we see a lot. So just keep that in mind. If you've been to the chiropractor before, if you've had treatment of this part of your body, and then this part of your body was injured in whatever incident it is, you're going to have to deal with those prior medical records before.
Yeah.
Okay, and so talking about health care, I would say also, what's the cost of your future medical treatment?
Right, yeah, if you're going to need future treatment down the road and that offer that you're getting to settle the case doesn't include at least some consideration for that future treatment you know you're going to need, then you're probably not getting a fair shake, right? We see this a ton where our client will be injured and they've done everything they could up to the point of surgery. And then they decide, well, I don't want to have surgery, or whatever it might be, which is completely up to them to decide whether or not they want to do. But a lot of times insurance companies have a real hard time paying for a maybe surgery or paying for maybe treatment down the road. So unless you've got some really solid evidence or some doctor's deposition or medical testimony to say that, hey, Joel's going to need that surgery, it's scheduled 6 months from now, they're going to have a real hard time from a settlement perspective to give consideration for that.
Yeah.
So.
And that's just the nature of the beast, because cases aren't going to wait around for 10 years for you to get a surgery that you need 10 years down the road.
Right.
They have to be resolved within certain time frames. So just keep that in mind as well. So yeah, I'd say to sum it up, you definitely have to make sure all your bills are paid. You have to consider what your legal costs are. You have to make sure you're fully compensated for your special damages, lost wages, and medical bills and all that. And then you have to consider what the defenses are that the other side's going to bring against you that could weaken your case, and then consider similar cases and all that.
Yep.
And from all of that information, you come to decide, okay, what's a reasonable settlement value for my case? What do I think it's worth? What does the other side think it's worth? And then is it worth compromising a little bit and taking their top number?
Right.
Sometimes it is.
Right.
Sometimes it's not.
Right. And to me, at least, it comes down to calculating that risk to decide whether or not it's worth taking it. So.
And each individual's risk tolerance, for sure.
Exactly.
Yep. All right. Well, I think that about wraps it up for week 22. If this video has been helpful to you, we'd appreciate you giving us a thumbs up, subscribing to our channel, and if there's any other things that you can think of that may go into determining whether a settlement offer is reasonable, just go ahead and put those in the comment section below. We'd love to hear from you. Otherwise, we'll see you next week for video number 23.